everybody, and welcome to Benivo Bites. I'm Brian Friedman. I'm your host for the next hour, and we've got an amazing show lined up for you today. So it's great to see everybody here today. And well, you know how it works, don't you? You know, we've done this show a lot. Let us know, write in the comments box, tell us who you are, where you are, what's on your mind. Let us know, join in the conversation. This is your show. Feel free as we get into the show to ask whatever questions you want to get that debate going. Let's have that conversation going and find out what are the issues that are really topical for you that you want to discuss. Today, we've got an awesome, awesome panel of guests for you today. Our focus is on APAC. It's on the region. It's also on technology, it's on automation, and it's on work from home, or work from anywhere. It's such a fascinating subject. And we've got a great, great cast of people joining us today. I'm delighted to say that we've got Shumin Yo from Micron Technology, who's joining us. We've got Vivi Himmel from Alta Vita, and we've got Alf Carlasater joining us. And of course, we've got Nitsan Udan from Benivo and Julia Onslow-Cole from Fragamon. So we've got a fabulous show live for you today. So let's see, who have we got in the audience? I'm seeing people coming in from, we've got Michael Cadden from Connecticut. I see Namaste, we've got Bindu from India, we've got Natasha from Hawaii, we've got Marie from Ireland, we've got Vivek from India. I'm seeing people from London, from Stockholm, from Hong Kong, from the US. So people are coming in from all over the world, and it's just wonderful to have you all here today. So that's just absolutely fabulous. So let me tell you a bit about what we've got coming up on some of our other shows. We've got a great show on The View from the Top next week. So next week, we're doing a really fascinating subject. We're talking about mobility for good. We're talking about how we as a community of global mobility professionals can help give back and can do good, you know, because let's face it, we're all privileged in where we work and what we do and the fact that we do work. But we've got with us next week, we've got Adam Lowy from Move from Hunger. We've got Ian Robinson and Marina Brizar, who's going to be talking about an amazing charity called Talent Beyond Boundaries. And we've got Michelle Durkin, who's going to be talking about the Benivo initiative, which is gifting things forward, gifting for good. And actually, the one person who won't be on the show next week is me, because I've got a vacation booked. I'm going to be on a beach in Portugal, fingers crossed. But our guest presenter, I'm sure will do a far better job than I ever do, is the wonderful, the one and only Peggy Smith. So we've got Peggy Smith on the show, guest presenting it next week. So fabulous show next week. And then on June the 9th, we've got Benivo Bites is coming back, and we've got a live case study with Phillips 66. So we've got, again, another amazing show coming up. So we've got lots of great stuff coming up for you. And I'm seeing we've got loads more people coming in, and that's just great to see you all here. So people coming in from, we've got Danielle there from Cambridgeshire. We've got Amber Lodging, Chris Barnett. Great to see you, Chris. So we got Venkat from Germany. We've got people coming up from all over. So what I'm going to do now, without further ado, we want to get into it. So we always start off with we always start off with an immigration update. So let's get into that, and let's bring in the one and only, the legend that is Julia Onslow-Cole, and she's going to be talking to us about immigration, and in particular, immigration in the APAC region. Julia.
Hi.
You, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Excellent.
Okay, so Julia, you're going to talk to us about about APAC today, I believe.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's on the agenda?
Well, I mean, as you know, we always have a really interesting conversation before we come on air. And, I think all the technology, Benivo's doing with Nitsan and everyone's contribution today is going to be so interesting, because I think that in the APAC region, it's so complicated looking at global mobility issues, and the technology is a fantastic support and is so needed in this area. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of the discussion. But overall, everything is very complicated, and that's because all of the countries in the APAC region are concerned about new clusters of the variant. And what we've seen is increased in restrictions. So Singapore has rolled back and is now at gone back to phase 2, which is only essential workers working in the office. And what we are seeing at the moment is a lot of clients are wanting to move people into countries in the region, having great difficulty moving people in, great difficulty moving people out. And there's a number of people who are actually stuck in India, who they're trying to move out of India, and also that's proving very difficult. And also we've seen a number of clients facing quite big fines for non-compliance. Non-compliance in terms of the health and safety regulations. So if, for example, in Singapore, by having people in the office who are not essential workers, and also non-compliance with the new tightening restrictions. So I'm going to do a kind of whistle-stop tour around Asia Pac, but just starting in Malaysia. In Malaysia, there's a full lockdown until the 7th of June. And although it's not quite like the first lockdown, so we're seeing that the economic sectors are continuing to operate, it is very strict. And I wanted to try and give you some useful highlights. So one of the things is that there is what's called a My Entry portal, and you have to go through this portal if you want exceptionally to move someone into Malaysia. And there's no publicly available guidelines, but the wonderful team that we have there said to tell everyone that what's really important is a justification letter from the company explaining why it's really critical for the individual to enter Malaysia in the midst of the pandemic. And if you get that letter and it's well drafted, in their experience, they have been very successful. So that's a really good tip to remember.
The secret there is to take real good professional advice before you submit that.
Yeah, well, I think, you could, it's, in some ways it's common sense about, what sort of things you need to do, there's no guidance on the portal. So I think if you could make sure that you get good supporting evidence. In Singapore, they've got increasingly amazing technology. So I did post about this, but they're actually having technology which is like a breath test at the border, which will detect COVID. So that's quite amazing. But the real story in Singapore is, this real tightening up of the requirements for immigration. And on the 15th of May, we saw a new head of the Minister for Manpower. But the key priorities are preserving local jobs and moving businesses to become less reliant on foreign workers. And we also, I have mentioned this before, but this is a really terrible backward step. But from earlier this month, dependents of employment passes couldn't automatically get letters of consent to enable them to work. But one really top tip now is that employers should keep those interview notes and job offer records for at least 1 year in case of complaints of discriminatory hiring is made against the company. And we're seeing this whole compliance regime really strongly enforced. And one of the things that we've seen of companies that make job offer before the job posting is closed. So if you mustn't, whatever you do, make those job offers until the whole of the advertising and posting has been closed. And the fines are jail for up to 2 years, and these are for the employers and key personnel, and also a fine of up to 20,000 Singapore dollars. And then the other thing to say is that I did explain the other week what's happening in Singapore and the fact it's almost impossible if you're coming from a high-risk country to get approval to travel. And therefore, because of that, we're now advising to hold off submitting any applications for employment passes, because even if they are approved, you'll never get your people in. So I want to move swiftly on to Vietnam, and Vietnam's really important because there was a lot of discussion a couple of months ago about people finding it very hard in Singapore. So should they move people to Vietnam? And Vietnam was being looked at by a number of companies. It's a relatively easy option to move people. But I think what we've seen, particularly since February, is a hardening of immigration rules. And they've brought in what's called Degree 152. And what this is a sort of number of really onerous steps and particularly restrictions on work permit renewals. And this means that if you want to renew someone's work permit, you have to almost start again. Now, what this has meant is that there is a huge spike in rejection rates. And we haven't really seen this before. But the other thing that's quite worrying is it's quite indiscriminate and inconsistent in the way the rules are being applied. But because of this, we're seeing a lot of refusals, and the idea that Vietnam was maybe an easy option is actually one that's really doesn't stand up anymore. In the Philippines, we've seen this major increase of labour market testing. As at the 5th of May this month, there were new rules. And there is a special non-immigrant visa category in the Philippines, which is called 47A2 visas. Now, it used to be really easy to move this category to another job. And what we've seen is employers who want to hire, they can't bring people into the Philippines because of all the travel bans. So they're hiring foreign nationals who are on these 47A2 visas for new jobs. But the new rules that are being applied in the Philippines means it's almost impossible to do this. And so it means we've got a lot of people who are now stuck, who can't take the new jobs that have been offered to them, or they're in quite a lot of difficulty. So this is something to bear in mind. So just quickly moving on, China travel ban is in place. Nothing much has changed since my last update. But finally, just touching on Australia. And as you know, from March of this year, there are a lot of travel restrictions inwards into Australia. And we believe that Australia's borders are really going to be closed to foreign nationals, and that there's going to be very limited mobility until after the first half of 2022, which is really quite incredible if you think about it. And the last point I want to say about Australia is that what we're seeing is a lot more refusals when we've made exceptional cases for travel exemptions. They're getting increasingly challenging. So where you have options where you can move people back to Australia, or should you move them to the UK, if you're trying particularly to get them into the US, we've kind of changed our tactics here, and we're bringing them to the UK rather than try to get them into Australia.
Okay, Julia, that's an amazing update. You've done about 6 countries in about 5 minutes. So that's really going some, a real whistle-stop tour. Really appreciate everything you do for us. And again, see you at the end of the show and again next week. But I'm going to say goodbye to you now, and we're going to go on to the technology part of the show and bring on our special guests. So from everybody in the industry, Julia, many thanks for all the help, for everything, the information you provide.
Thank you. Thank you.
welcome to my wonderful guests. We've got Shumin, we've got Vivi, we've got Alf, and it's a delight to have you all here today. So let's start off. Where in the world are you all? Let's start with you, Shumin. Where are you today?
Yeah, I'm actually based here in Singapore. So right now it's about 11:60 p.m. for me. Yeah.
And it's a public holiday for you as well. So you're giving up your holiday or the evening of your holiday for us. So
yes,
round of applause. I can see all the hearts and the applause is coming up. So let's keep hitting those buttons to say thank you to Shumin and Alf. You're also in Singapore, aren't you?
Absolutely, we're in the same boat, Brian, Shumin and I. So yes, good to be on the show.
Okay, well, thank you. And Vivi, you're not in Singapore. So tell us a bit about yourself and your background as well, Vivi.
Oh, sure. I am usually based in London, but today I've been blessed. I got to spend a day in Kent, the Garden of England at the moment. But yeah, background, Brian, I am so pleased that we're discussing about APAC today because APAC is very close to me. It's my home. I'm from Indonesia. I went to boarding school in Australia, and then I also spent many years of my career in...
I think Vivi may... Okay, are you there, Vivi? I think you may have frozen.
Oh. Okay, I don't know where you lost me, but yes, boarding school in Perth, and then I spent 2 years in Hong Kong, Shanghai, and then also Tokyo. Really happy to be here.
Okay, and Shumin, now a little birdie tells me that you may be the only person in the mobility industry, or as not in the mobility industry, as a head of mobility, who's actually can code. You've got a degree in computer science, haven't you? So how did you get into global mobility?
Yeah, so this has always been a question, right? You know, why someone with an IT degree will end up in mobility. So I would say that, yes, indeed, I graduated with Bachelor in Computing, and during my university days, I actually have an opportunity to join this computing club where we engage with college students to share with them why they should join computing. So that is really how it creates my passion to want to work with people. And I would say that I am very privileged that since my graduation, I was given the opportunity to join this joint venture company that's called Tech Semiconductor, which is a joint venture company between Micron, Economic Development Board of Singapore, Canon, and HP. So back then, the HR team was actually setting up the internal communications team. So that's how I got into the HR department. So one career, but I have multiple job opportunities. So moving on from internal communications, I get to work in the regional business partner team, later on into the HR service center, and then mobility. So I would say that it's probably coming to 6 years of my whole journey in mobility, and definitely every day is, always a new learning experience for all of us.
And for those that don't know Micron, tell us a bit about mobility at Micron, a bit about the program that you look after.
Yeah, sure. Okay, maybe let me just share a little bit of context first about Micron. So for Micron, we really pride ourselves as a leader in the memory and storage solution. So for us, we are actually headquarters in Boise, Idaho. We are founded in 1978, and we have more than 40,000 team members worldwide, with more than 2/3 of the employees are actually based out here in Asia. So I would say that for Micron, one unique thing is that we actually have this thing that's called the Manufacturing Center of Excellence, where we actually provide the end-to-end solution from the manufacturing to the assembly and the test of our solution. So in Asia itself, we have actually the Manufacturing Center of Excellence sites in Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, China, and also Japan. And we also have a site here in India. And I would say that for India, it is actually one of our technology development center that's outside of US. So for Micron, I would say from a mobility context, we actually globally we move more than 1,500. We have more than 1,500 moves year to year. Definitely with the pandemic, it has slowed down a little. But I would say that maybe at the end of this year, I still anticipate we may have about close to 600 to 700 move. And very interestingly, out of which 70% are actually domestic, because we do have quite a number of domestic movements in Japan as well as in India.
Okay, well, the theme of today is international relocation in APAC, and at Benivo we've produced a couple of white papers before. We produced a white paper on domestic relocation in the US. We did another white paper on domestic relocation in India. But this time we partnered with Alto Vita and we did one focusing on international relocation in APAC. So maybe Alf and Vivi, you can just tell us a bit about the study, and let's get cracking into that area of discussion. Alf, do you just want to keep telling us a bit about it?
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. Yes. So, you know, by way of my background, I've spent most of my professional career here in Asia. So I'll sort of call Singapore home. So APAC, an APAC study is sort of close to my heart, professionally and otherwise as well. But yes, so a great partnership here with Vivi in terms of together lining up candidates for interviews that form the basis for our white paper study and what we've now published. What I would say, Brian, without sort of spoiling the joy for anyone who wants to read the report, is that three things are standing out. Right?
So let me just come in there. I'll just say, if anybody does want to read it, I think we just put it on screen, but you can, if you just go directly onto the Benivo website or the Alta Vita website, it's right on there on the homepage, and you can download the report directly. Sorry, Alf, continue. I was just cutting across to make that advertorial for the white paper.
Absolutely. No, thanks, Brian. No worries. Yes, as I said, three themes sort of stood out, and I think that's going to be kind of what we want to massage and maybe dig a little deeper into today on the show. One is, of course, volumes. The second part is around virtual assignments or distributed workforce, many names for that sort of activity. And thirdly, not lastly, technology. So if I start perhaps with some reflections on the volume aspect, I think everyone, as the COVID pandemic sort of started to spread from the early discoveries last year, it was a very reactive stance that people had to take, or organizations had to take, to understand, well, what do I need to know now? People getting stuck, etc., etc. And then slowly, as we understood the magnitude of the pandemic and what it means in terms of what we can do and cannot do, we started to see impacts on the volume. So the traditional expat movements went down, business travel sort of dried up a little bit. Most organizations reported out that they saw up to a 50% drop. Some organizations were still going, not restricted by anything but the actual ability to secure work permits and that sort of thing, but otherwise the programs were alive. Some companies reported out even that, well, they are small today, but they are optimistic that in the future, in the near future, they will actually be able to drastically expand the volume of expats that they are going to have within the workforce. So down generally because of COVID compared to the previous sort of normal year, but also glimmers of hope that we are going to get out of this.
Okay, and Vivi, you were very actively involved in developing and working on the document. So tell me a bit about your perspective on international relocation in the APAC region.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. I thought that it's worth noting that we really managed to get together a lot of mobility managers from different perspectives, both in industry as well as the region. So we saw there were quite a few mobility managers from Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, Japan, as well as India as well. So we had a good perspective of all the regions in Asia Pacific. Also on the industry, there were FMCG, also commodity powerhouses, accounting firms, finance and services, so on and so forth. So I think that this benchmarking report managed to get a good perspective of many different regions as well as the industry.
Okay, and you said one of the major themes we were talking about at the beginning was this question of numbers of what's happening to volumes. Did you get any feeling for where volumes are normalizing? Are we going to see pent-up demand? Are we, where do you think the second half of 2021 is going to start looking like?
Yeah. So in addition to the APAC benchmarking report, Altavita, 2 weeks ago, we also held a 4-day conference. We call it the APEC Rising Up Conference. We covered topics from investor sentiment out of crisis to apartment of the future, and then the technology distribution, as well as work from anywhere trend. We also took a poll of 200 attendees, and there was a staggering 96% of the audience feeling a pent-up demand for travel coming out of the pandemic. And when speaking to the managers in APAC, I think a lot of the common theme there is also that they're ready to be back in business.
Okay, and Schumann, from your perspective, is that what you're seeing at Micron? Do you think there's pent-up demand now?
Yes. Actually, I do agree with what Vivek has mentioned, because right now, as I shared, right, for Micron, we are also expanding our presence here in Asia. So right now, in terms of the travel, all travel are very critical. So I'm also seeing a trend of increasing travel, and I would say that at the same time, Micron is also aggressively hiring in some of the region where we are expanding. So that's where I'm also seeing that we do have that constant, domestic movements, even within Japan during this pandemic.
Because when you hire, people quite often will move to start work. Is that right? So that you're not just hiring locally, you're hiring, cross city, cross state, within country.
Mm. Yes, that's right. Cross city or cross states. So just to share, like for example, in Japan, on a year-to-year basis, we do bring in hundreds of new college graduates within Japan itself. And I would say that before the pandemic, what the team did was that they probably will have to go for career fairs, and each time when we engage with the people, it's only about 20 to 30. But I think one interesting fact is that the pandemic has basically probably accelerated this technology platform for us, where now all the career fairs we are going virtual. So that's where we are able to really engage with more people. I would say more than 100 students each time. And a very interesting thing that we did also observe is that when the students join us, we actually see more diverse pool of candidates, more gender diverse pool of candidates joining such career show. So I would say that for this current, what this pandemic has brought about is not just the technology acceleration, but also at the same time bring that different diverse talent over to Micron. So essentially, I would also add on that we also had a very phased approach to bring people back to office. So that's where we will look at in terms of how the pandemic is in the location. And then from there, we will assess, is it time for us to move the people closer to site or back to the office? So it could be that, maybe when we move them, they are still working from home. Then only when situation gets better, that's where we'll bring them back to office.
Okay, and we've mentioned technology, and I feel sort of bad using that technology word without having Nitsan Yudan on the screen with us. I'm just going to bring Nitsan into the stream as well. So Nitsan, good to see you as ever. We were talking about technology, and we're talking about work from home, work from anywhere, call it what you will. How are we going to see those things coming together? How are we going to see work from anywhere work from let's put the tax and legal side bit to one side for the moment, and let's just talk about the HR side of it, the technology side, and indeed, I suppose, almost the reward side as well. How do we think that's going to start working in practice? How's that going to start panning out? What are you seeing, Nitsan, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think the technology is not the barrier here. The barrier are two. Compliance and psychology, right? As human beings, in terms of compliance, I think is straightforward, and lots of people here are bigger experts than I am on tax and immigration and the challenges of doing it. I think
with compliance, the questions are easy and straightforward. The answers may not be, but we know what the questions are anyway. So we won't go into that today. So let's talk about the other aspects of it. Yeah.
But also the psychology aspects are also, there are good questions, not many answers yet, right? Because we know that as human beings, our biology is built, right? Our DNA is built about spending time together in groups, ideally up to 150 people, in order to create that culture that allowed us to survive as mankind for so many years, and completely disconnecting that is just different than how our DNA currently works. Will it gonna work or not? What are gonna be the impact? I think it's a bit early to. I think we already see a lot of the people feeling overstressed, overworked, a lot of frustration from the last 14 months, and because we took it to an extreme. So maybe now it's time, hopefully, as of course, following all the healthcare guidelines, to try and see how we balance it back. But I don't think that, it's maybe not a very innovative approach, but I don't think that any of the extreme will end up working, at least in the next few years. It will take us a few times to adapt and understand the full impact.
And Vivi, what are you seeing from, both the work you're doing at Alta Vita, but also from the Rising Up conferences that you were running as well?
Yeah, along the same line as what Nitsan has mentioned, psychology. The very strong trend we were seeing was the community-focused living, that ecosystem that, I as a person, individual, before I am an employee for sure, but as assignees as well, they are saying that, months of living in isolation really sparks that urge to want to be part of the community again. So when we ran polls about the different amenities, be it inside or on property amenities like gym or access to Wi-Fi, so on and so forth, versus coffee spaces and restaurants or any other kind of community spaces, it's not clear. We thought that you would want more on-property amenities, but actually you're also wanting that community, that ecosystem as well as part of your day-to-day life, especially when, like Xiumin mentioned, everyone is not going back to the office yet, although they are being placed in different host country, right? They're still working from home. So home is becoming so important. It's becoming that anchor. It's where you live. It's where you work. And you're not just living and working. You need that community. You need to be able to interact again. And that really highlights what I think about what Nitsan said on psychology.
Hey, Brian, let me add a comment on that, if I may. Just spinning off of what Xiumin said earlier, and also Nitsan, there was one of the participants, without naming them here in the study, that I interviewed as I wrote this up, that mentioned the fact that they had to pivot, as so many others had to do, in terms of how they were engaging their expat workforce. And in particular, the story was around how they would initiate assignments, how they would introduce the assignment to a group of people. And what it did, this particular case, there was more junior assignees that were going out, and they had prep sessions with senior leaders from the organization, and it was all done via Zoom. And it did two things. One, it gave the junior staff access to very senior leaders in a very efficient way. And also the flip side of that was that the senior leaders had an opportunity to interact and also obtain comments and feedback, very similar to what you are seeing now today on the show. People were commenting, asking questions, right? So it actually became an engagement tool. And this particular organization said, even after the pandemic, we may stick to this. This may be a very good way of initiating a discussion up front before someone goes on assignment. So I think we will see, arguably, even coming out of the pandemic, some of this technology that we have been forced to use actually sticking as the preferred model of interacting. So I think that's an interesting sort of twist to it.
Okay. So, I mean, are we going to see then the technology being used not just to manage the process, but to enhance the experience, so that the experience actually is better than where we were pre-pandemic?
Well, I think, everyone is talking about UX, right? Any organization worth their salt will talk about UX and do things, right? So we're not by any means, I think, done in the technology space. There is more to be had, be that from a management or tracking perspective, but also to drive, as you said, the user experience. I think as human beings, we are very creative, and sometimes necessity is the best motivator to get things changed.
And I think the two biggest trends that we've seen in terms of employee experience in mobility, and it would be great to hear from you, Shumi, Vivi, and Alf, if you see that in APAC as well, is a lot more flexibility to the employees. So because people got used to working from home, to have different type of flexibility, now the expectation from the packages are not to be very strict, but to be more tailored to my personal needs. And what we've seen companies are doing to solve that is going into two directions. Some of them are going the lump sum way, kind of, all right, if you want flexibility, get all the flexibility in the world, here's the money, and sort it out. Or the other trend is toward flexibility, all right, willing to support that, but that's gonna go under core flex. So there are a few things that we want to deliver because we want to make sure you get, and with the rest, you get to choose whether you want to spend it with different vendors, or maybe get someone to help you reassemble furniture, or cleaning services, or additional kind of non-real or traditional services. But that's kind of the two trends that we are seeing very clearly in the market. Would love to hear how you guys see it in APAC.
Are we seeing much, from your point of view, Shumin, are we seeing a trend towards either lump sum or core flex?
Yeah, so actually, this is a very interesting question because for Micron, we have been on a policy for some of our international relocation policy. We say that yes, indeed, we do see that there is actually a trend, because maybe we can say that the employees, they are more well-read, they want to have more control in terms of their own relocation. So rather than giving them like I think a one-size-fits-all may not basically work right now. So having that flexibility, be it a lump sum or maybe like a suite of services that they can select from, I think that will be something that really works well, at least over here in Micron.
I could just quickly comment on that. So we are currently in the process of delivering the product features. We sourced from the design thinking as part of the 3-4 month innovation summit we're doing here at Alta Vita. One of the most common theme we found during the focus groups, it was 5 different live focus groups with 5 different regions, is essentially that 50% of relocations are complex, with family, pets. Pet relocations are extremely trendy right now. And signees are wanting work from home amenities to be on the ready, as well as having time sensitivity put into place as well. And although, but that said, another 50% of the cases are straightforward, in which case technology can come in and essentially streamline a lot of the processes. And for sure, these are beneficial for the digital first population, perhaps younger assignees who are mobile first before they even touch a laptop, for example. So, in our world here, we can't remove that human-centric approach. It's always going to be a combination of technology to help streamline the processes, to take out all the manual copying and pasting, PDFing, and emailing, so on and so forth. And then at the same time, having the relocation consultants really delivering a higher value output.
Okay, and that's actually a great segue, Vivi, that we're talking about. This is a technology show, and we're talking about the experience. And I think that there is a lot that technology can do. And Nitsa, I'm going to hand over to you because I know you're bursting to show some technology that we've developed, focusing on. Well, I think this is actually focused in on China, given we're talking about APAC. But do you just want to talk us through some of the technology that is out there at the moment?
Yeah, I think one of the things we wanted to share today, right, because we've made a commitment when we started the Benivo Bites show almost a year ago to be able every 2 weeks to show something new that we are doing in Benivo. And sometimes it's been easy because we have lots of new things, and other times it's been obviously a bit more stretched. So today we said, let's see how we can stretch it even more and deliver, as Vivi said, some relocations are more complicated and some countries are more challenging than other countries. And what we wanted to deliver is a platform to support relocations to China. So we have been supporting already moves in China for a few years. Now we've added also domestic moves within China, as well as a lot of new content into the platform. So maybe I'll share my screen and we'll have a few things, and then also we'll see how that connects into Alta Vita and selection of housing. So should be an interesting one.
Okay, so we'll share your screen. We're talking about China. We're talking about, in particular, you're going to look at domestic relocation in China, which I think is a fairly new area for technology to be focused in on, but clearly hugely important. And then we'll segue from that into the Alta Vita partnership as well. So let's start off with that. So here's some technology. Talk us through it, Nitsan.
All right, and we are starting the same place where I hope most of the people on this show have seen that before, our demo platform, Stark Industries. And with Stark, we've already went to quite a few locations in the world with you while staying in front of our laptop. And today we are going into Chengdu in China, in Sichuan, and we're going to look at an international mover to Chengdu. Why I chose international is because I have a feeling that most people here on the call, including me, if they were to move to Chengdu, that will be an international move rather than a domestic move. But the platform is also fully supporting now domestic moves, and it's also customized to that. So the content is relevant for someone who has lived and worked in China before. So what are we going to have here? The three main areas: actions. This is everything I need to do, when do I need to do it, and how to get it done. And it's all powered by insights from my colleagues, right? So I can see how others have done it before, how others have sought out bank accounts and mobile and the VPN, and we'll see a few examples. Then it's the destination area, covering all the areas of destination support, housing, shipping, culture training, language, the local settling in, and even an entire platform for spouse support. So every employee can invite their spouse, and that's included. So not something as an additional cost, but something that we wanted to make sure make every spouse, every partner welcome, so they can join to a platform that is built for them. And finally, when relevant, access to money, so the ability to receive payments. Yes, even in China, even supporting local payment solutions such as Alipay and UnionPay and others to get the funds fast and easy into China. So let's start. For me, at least, when we talk about Chengdu, I don't know if you've been in Chengdu before, but the first thing I think of is food. So I'm going to search here about food, and immediately it takes me to
Hot pot.
Exactly, the hot pot, the most popular dish that you can find in Chengdu, including a recommendation from a colleague of mine and others, people who already been there and selected places to be, and kind of I can share that experience, right? So I can start from there, or if I want to go to a bit more traditional food, also I have a few such recommendations. So after we had a taster of the food, maybe the next thing I want to get is kind of a quick overview. So I'm going to go into kind of what are the top tips to living in China. To me, obviously, as someone who is passionate about technology, going online is the most critical thing. Before my last visit in China, I spent a lot of time figure out how do I stay connected, right? So we have here all the tips and information, whether it's VPN or alternative solution, how to access the same tools that we are used to outside of China, as well as which mobile networks are popular with my colleagues. So where should I get my SIM card, and some tips and tricks, right? If you really want to utilize WeChat, which it is everything in China, right? You need WeChat for making payments, connecting to people. It's kind of a combination of Facebook, WhatsApp, and PayPal in a way. So definitely, I will need a local SIM card and a local phone. So walking me through how it's best to do that with some more tips and tricks. And then, right, going about, obviously language is a barrier. So which tools are giving me the ability to instantly translate? I was lucky just before the pandemic to be in China, and it's unbelievable what you can do with technology. You talk to an app in English, even with my heavy accent, and the app talks to the taxi driver in the local language, not Cantonese, Mandarin, etc., where I am. So just helping us with doing that. Other areas, I can see how to prepare, to the environment, what's going on, how do I out and about. So payments methods, which payment methods are available for those people that using cards, right? Credit cards is not something that many people do. They actually pay with apps and becoming more and more cash less. So what are the most popular ride-hailing apps? So no Uber in China, right? One of the places where you can't use an Uber is in China. They actually sold their operation to Didi. So again, can see what are my alternative. If I do decide that I want to book a taxi on the street, what are the top tips, etc. So really giving me in just a few minutes in a very interactive day that I can get from my mobile at any time, some of the key highlights about China and relocating to there. If I want to learn about the culture, again, I can go and search. We can look at the working culture in China.
We won't do this now, but I know that you've shown this in English, but this is available in multiple different languages. Do you just want to say a few words about that?
Yes. So we are available in 103 languages, including quite a few local languages in China. So possible to have the content in different languages, not only in English, and go and explore. Really, I went today, like we've seen in previous shows, more about opening a bank account and getting your mobile and the admin of relocation. Now I wanted to see some of the more cultural and fun and, or learning about the working habits and office ethic and etc. So just a little bit, right? How does sick leave work when you go to China? What's the expected business talk? How to negotiate, what to negotiate, lunch breaks, etc. All right, I'm gonna go now into accommodation and housing. Again, one of the most important areas. Where should I go live? How can I see where other people who relocated with the same company or similar profile companies, which areas do they end up living? How much do they pay? So even if I'm gonna get, and we're probably gonna give on the ground provider, not through us, but one of the DSPs will provide an on the ground person for home search, at least I can come a lot more prepared to that 1-2 days of home search and know what expected commute time, what are the prices, the size of the properties, the popular neighborhoods with my colleagues, and I can go and explore all of that also on a map. All right, with that, I'm going to look into the last thing, into housing, which is obviously to look into temporary accommodation. And here, lucky enough to be working with Alto Vita. So we have a digital brief, right? The idea is that everything, all the information is on the platform via digital brief. So there is still human support, but only when needed. And when people want to just get things rolling, they can do it. And I think that's part of the magic of what also Vivi is offering. So as the employee, I can just click here, and this will take me into Alto Vita in order to be able to continue the demo by Vivi and see how the experience will look on that end.
Okay, well let's do that. We'll take that off and let's bring on Vivi. Let's bring on your screen.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much, Nipsan. I'm going to try to now connect, and apologies if it does disconnect at some point because I have a better internet here. But are you able to now see the famous Stark Industries, and we are now in Chengdu?
Yeah, no, it's come up. We're at Stark Industry, China Temporary Housing in Chengdu. So do you want to, I think we might,
this is,
go for it, Vivi. I thought we lost you there.
Yeah, apologies. So I'm try speaking. Yeah, so this is really the interface, very independent, very autonomous. Scientists can essentially choose whatever they want here within, hopefully, the budget that they've been out. I also like to show quickly our community feature. So
I'm sorry, Vivi. We're having a lot
my
of
internet is very slow.
Nitsan, can you talk us through this at all, or not? You might have better sound.
All right, let me talk through the Alto Vita platform. So I'll let Vivi continue to share her screen and do the clicks while it. We are seeing here the delays. Their platform is rapid, fast. I use it before and seen it before. The only issue here that we're having are due to the load time. So what we are seeing now, really on the screen, is the same digital first experience that we expect on any other place, brought into the ability to see corporate housing. And some of the benefits of this platform is that it can work within the budget. So automatically, the platform already knows which policy the employee is on and can show them available properties based on their budget. So it reduces their time, the back and forth, a lot of the manual steps. And what's exciting about that, we can see here the office location in red and some of the location of the temporary housing providers. And on the left, we can see the initial details. So I can see the prices, and I can see a button that I didn't see before or don't see that often, which is book now. Right? And that's exciting because I can immediately go and click submit and be able to get an instant booking. So that's just not going to be just an inquiry, but actually I can enter here my information, or it can take it from the previous platform I was on, and I can enter here the the details of what I need. I see a summary, and I can check out, and I know that one more task in my to-do list is done. Now, probably one question is that what happens when the solutions are not enough? Then it's not only digital here, as Vivi said before, right? Some relocations are more complicated, more challenging, and you need more than just a self-serve tool. You also need people to support, and then there is a live team by Alto Vita that can help support with finding specific options. I think, Vivi, you wanted to share some email templates that are being automatically generated.
And yes, let's do that. And hopefully Vivi's sound has come back a bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you fine now.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna. This is really the assignee perspective. Really, we can create very easily a policy. Let's say, China temp housing, and there is a strict budget for a group of assignees moving to Chengdu. Let's say 150. Perhaps enable over budget of 10%, and we have even multiple currencies here that we can choose. So Chinese yuan, essentially major currencies in the world, or we can add any currencies that you would like. So US dollars, and all of these are customizable. We can customize the text. I'm going to put China temp housing, copy and paste here. We can even change the images as well, create page. Just like that, we can essentially create a policy for stuck industries, for assignees moving to China. And we are present in 165 countries around the world. All of these pins are live. They link to property pages. I hope it loads up fast for you as well as it is for me. And
yeah,
then,
it's absolutely looking good. And Vivi, just to let you know, I'm hearing comments out there in LinkedIn world to say how easy and amazing your technology is. And as Rob Zeitz put, it speaks to how easy the platform is to use if someone from another company can help do the walkthrough for you. So it just shows what amazing technology you got there, Vivi.
Thank you so much, Ryan. So we are now here in the duty of care element. Our duty of care is very meticulous. We go through a thorough due diligence, both on the property level as well as on the operator level. So we look at the operators, how well they do incident management, hospitality. We also look at their insurance, background checks, so on and so forth. Only after they pass those, then we assess their properties on an individual basis. Every property must have all of these amenities, and also they have to comply to corporate standard. Like I said, 50% relocations are straightforward, in which case technology can really self-serve. But at the same time, sometimes it's not as easy, and our team is here every step of the way. We have 24/7 support, US toll-free. Our offices are in London, Singapore, and Dallas. I would love to go through the email feature as well, but I think we're running out of time, and I want to be appreciative of the other panelists as well. If you guys are interested in further demo, I'm sure you know where to look me up. I'm Vivi Himmel, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you, Ryan and Rickson.
Well, thank you. I mean, that was amazing technology. I think that the Benivo platform, the domestic China platform, the international China platform, the language capability that it holds, the information, as somebody, one of the people in LinkedIn's world said, it's taking, to a whole new level of detail, the information that can be provided. And Vivi, the Alta Vita platform, and the user friendliness of it, and the whole sort of guest experience is quite formidable. We are pretty much running out of time. So what I do want to do is in particular to thank you, Shumin, for your insights of what's going on. I appreciate that it's very late at night. It must be midnight now for you in Singapore on a public holiday. So we really appreciate you sharing about your company and your personal experience, and hopefully we'll get you back on the show at some other time in the future. Alf, thank you so much for all the work you've done working on this on this report. As I said to everybody, if you want the report, it's available to download. You can just go on to the homepage of Benivo.com or indeed the homepage of altavita.com, and you can download the report. And Vivian Nitsan, thank you so much for sharing technology with us all. And to everybody out there in LinkedIn world, in Facebook world, on YouTube, we really appreciate you coming in and sharing your thoughts and comments with us and being part of this show. We will be back next week with The View from the Top, which is the Mobility for Good, the charity, the social giving episode that we're running. So thank you all, everybody. And all that it really remains for me to do is to thank the panelists and to thank everybody in the audience. So thank you all and goodbye.